Hey guys, welcome to our first episode of Pathfinder Adventure Card Game. Chris and Joella here getting ready to play a Brigandoom scenario. The special rules for this scenario say that whenever a monster forces you to recharge a card, you get to draw a card after doing so. The four locations we have are the woods, which say undefeated monsters other than villains or henchmen are banished, and when closing, succeed at a Wisdom or Survival 6 check to close. The waterfront, at this location, when using a weapon, subtract 1 from each dice rolled. After your exploration, you may discard 2 cards to explore again. When closing, summon and defeat a banded henchman, and when it's permanently closed, on closing, all characters at this location discard a card. Do you want to go ahead with the other two, Joella?
Sure. At the farmhouse at this location, if you would discard an ally, bury it instead. When closing, summon and defeat a random monster, and when permanently closed, no effect. And at the wooden bridge, at this location, you may discard 2 cards to evade an encounter. When closing, succeed at Dexterity or Stealth 6 check. When permanently closed, when you end your turn here, you may bury a card on your hand from your hand to recharge a card from your discard pile.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm playing Lem the Bard, and Joella's playing
Valeros the Fighter.
So we've decided that we're going to try and stick together as much as possible to get as much bonus from our abilities that we can. So where would you like to start?
Why don't we start on the waterfront?
The waterfront? Okay. Okay. So for my favorite card type, I get to choose, and I'm going to choose a spell. So I'll draw my hand of 6 cards, oh, and I got a spell. So I get to keep this hand. You going to draw your hand?
And I get my favorite card type is a weapon, and my hand size is 4. And I did have a weapon in my hand.
Alright, so let's get this thing going. Do you want to go first or second?
You can go first.
Okay, just going to flip the blessing and angle it towards me a little bit. It says to maybe do this just so you can get a handle on who's played the last blessing, because sometimes you can forget who's played the blessing and you only get 30 turns to do what you need to do. Okay, so I guess I'll explore. And I find an ambush, which is a Wisdom, Perception, Dexterity, Acrobatics 9 check. The difficulty to defeat this barrier is increased by the adventure deck number, which just happens to be 0 right now because we're in the tutorial adventure. It says if defeated, you may immediately explore again, and if undefeated, examine the location deck until you find a monster. Encounter it, subtracting 1 from each die rolled in your check. Shuffle the remaining cards in the location. Well, that could be really bad because it'll stack with this one that says when using a weapon, subtract 1. But if I don't use a weapon, which I have spells, which is good. So anyways, my dexterity is a D8. So the most I can get is possibly is an 8. Because your special power, I believe...
Valeros' powers add 1d4 to another character's combat check at your location.
Yeah, so this isn't a combat check, so no matter what I'm going to fail, so I'll just roll just for the fun of it. And I got a 6. So ambush gets discarded, and I go through until I find the first monster and encounter it. So I skip the collapse ceiling, and I find a siren. Collapse ceiling gets shuffled back in. Now the siren says it's a Wisdom 8 check, and all damage dealt by the siren is mental damage that may not be reduced. If undefeated, examine the top 3 cards of your deck and discard all allies. Shuffle any remaining cards back into your deck. Well, my Wisdom is a D6, so I'll be rolling a 6-sided die, and I need an 8. I get no bonuses, so I think I'm going to use a Blessing of the Gods to give myself another D6. And I think I'll just roll and see how good I do. Oh, I got a 7, so I lost by 1. So which means I'm going to take 1 point of damage, I believe.
Is this the one that you lose 1 die?
Oh, that's right. I lose 1.
Your 6 is a 5, your 1 is
Yeah.
a 0.
So I actually got a 5, so I'll be taking 3 points of damage. Well, I'll use my Amulet of Life, and it says discard that. Oh no, because it cannot be reduced. So I'm going to take 3 damage. Ouch. I'll lose those 3. And then it says, if undefeated, examine the top 3 cards of your deck and discard all allies. Lightning Touch, Blessing of the Gods, and Thieves' Tools. So I'll just shuffle those back in because it says to shuffle. And then because she's undefeated, she will get shuffled back into her deck. Well, that was a wonderful first turn right off the bat. What's your wisdom?
My wisdom is a D4.
So we're going to have a tough time beating that siren. So, I'm now going to cast the Cure spell, which says reveal this card and choose a character at your location. I'm going to choose myself and shuffle a D4 plus 1 random cards. I rolled a 1, of course, so I'll get 2 of these cards back. They get shuffled back in. And then it says discard this card. If you do not have the Divine Skill, banish this card. Well, Lem happens to have the Divine Skill, so I don't have to banish it. But it also has a recharge. Succeed at a Divine 8 to recharge this card instead of discarding it. So my Divine Skill is my Charisma plus 1, so I roll a D10, I get plus 1, and I need an 8. I rolled a 10. 10 plus 1 is 11, so this goes back on the bottom of my deck. And then I think I'm going to be finished my turn, so I draw back up to my hand size, which is 6 cards. And I'll pass the turn to Joella.
Blessing of Iomed. Discard this card to add 1 die to a check. Discard this card to add 2 die to a non-combat charisma check. Discard this card to explore your location.
So the big thing with the Blessing deck is any Blessing of the Gods you have, they have a special ability on them that when you discard them, you can copy the top card of the discard pile of the Blessing deck. So each of our Blessings of the Gods can technically be thrown away to become a Blessing of Iomide, which is a really neat power, but right now it's kind of useless to us.
I'd like to explore, please.
Okay. Joella runs into a ghost. Wow, we're off to a terrible start. The ghost is immune to the mental and poison traits, which you don't have, so that's not too bad. But if your check to defeat does not have the magic trait, the ghost is undefeated. You can fight him either with a combat 12 or a wisdom divine 8.
I'm going to go with the combat 12. I'm going to use my long sword. For your combat check, reveal this card to roll your strength or melee die plus 1d8. You may additionally discard this card to add another d6. If you aren't proficient with weapons, to this difficulty, check is increased by 4. So I'm going to use my d8, another d8 plus 1, and I think Chris has an ability I can use.
Yeah, it says once per check, you may recharge a card to add a d4 to a check attempted by another character at your location. So I think I'm going to recharge Detect Magic to give Joella an extra d4.
So far I have 2 d8s and a d4. And because it's a strength melee, correct?
Just combat.
Oh,
so
just
yeah,
combat?
your strength melee.
So I have a plus 3 to wherever. But I also have to minus 1 dice.
Yeah, because you're using a weapon, you got a minus 1 from each dice.
So that will be a 3, that will be a 2, and that will be a 2. So I'll be 2, 2, 4, and 3 is 7.
Okay, plus your...
Plus 3 is
a 10?
10.
So that means you lose by 2. So he's going to hit you for 2 points of damage.
But I have my chainmail that can recharge this card to reduce combat damage dealt to you by 2.
So that's good.
And I'm going to do that.
And he's undefeated, so he gets shuffled back then.
So at least we're together at this one. And my turn's done. I just got to draw up to my hand size.
Okay. Well, let's take another crack at this.
Let's
and I
flip
find.
the blessing card.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Blessing of Shaylin. This adds to a wisdom check. The bandit. So it's the henchman of the scenario. So they say, before the encounter, you have to recharge a card of your choice from your hand. And the special rule for this scenario says whenever you're forced to recharge a card, you get to draw a card. So I'm going to recharge Lightning Touch. And I'm going to draw a card to replace it. A Blessing of the Gods. Okay, so he's a combat 8. And he says, if defeated, you may immediately attempt to close the location. So I think I'm going to attempt to beat this guy this time. I'm going to use Force Missile, which allows me to roll my Arcane die plus 2d4 with the Force trait. My Arcane die is a d10 plus 1, and I get to add 2d4. And I believe Joella's ability...
I can add a d4 to another character's combat check at the same location.
Okay, so I get a third d4. I shouldn't need a Blessing of the Gods on this one to give me an extra dice, so let's roll my dice and see what happens. I get a +1 to this roll. And because I'm not using a weapon, I don't have to -1 from each die. We got 9, +8, +3, so that's 20. Plus my 1 is +1, which is more than enough to beat the 8 that he is. So he's defeated. So he goes away. Now it says, when closing, summon and defeat a bandit henchman. Well, I've already... Oh, I have to roll to see if I recharge my Force Missile, which says, succeed in an Arcane 6 check to recharge this card. So it's a d10 plus 1. I got a 5 plus 1 is 6. And in this game, you only have to tie to succeed. Okay, so the next one says, summon and defeat a bandit henchman. So he comes back. I have to recharge a card, so I'll recharge a Blessing.
So you're attempting to close the location.
I am attempting to close, yeah. I drew a guide. Okay. So this time, I don't have a spell, so I'll have to use my light crossbow, which says, for your combat check, reveal this card to roll your dexterity or ranged die, plus a d8. Well, I don't have ranged, but I do have a d8 for my dexterity, and the crossbow's going to give me another d8. Joella's ability will give me a d4, because she's great like that. But I need an 8 this time, and I'm minusing 1 from each die I roll. So this time I am going to use a Blessing of the Gods. When you use a Blessing of the Gods, it says discard this card to add 1 die to any check. I'm already rolling d8s, so I think I'll add another d8 to that roll. And I still feel pretty confident, so let's give it a roll. Now, I have another Blessing of the Gods in my hand, but you can't play more than one of the same type of card on your own check. Joella has a Blessing of the Gods. She could use it on my check, but I think we'll be okay. She should be able to save hers for later.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this becomes a 1, this becomes a 4, this becomes a 3, and this becomes a 3. So I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, which is enough to beat the 8 of the bandit. So he's defeated. And I successfully closed the location. So when you do that, you flip over, you read when permanently closed. On closing, all characters at this location must discard a card. And then you flip it over to show that it's closed. I actually think I'll discard my guide. And because Joella's there as well, she's going to have to discard a card as well.
I'll discard my Sage.
Okay. Now when you close a location, all the cards that were remaining in that location get sent back to the box. They're all banished. So, goodbye all of these maybe really good cards. We're not too sure, but at least we don't have to deal with that ghost or that siren again.
Yes.
And I will end my turn, so I'll draw back up to 6, and I'll say go ahead, Joella.
Lesson of Clarista. So, discard this card to add 2 dice to a non-combat dexterity check.
Okay.
So that's a good one if we bump into dexterity. Now, where do I want to move? I think I would like to move to the farmhouse.
Okay.
So I'll flip what I get. I got a luck stone, which is wisdom survival 5. Well, my wisdom is a D4, so I don't know how badly I want this.
Well, it says discard this card to add 1 to your check, and if you would fail a check by 1, you may bury this card to succeed. And it does have a wisdom survival recharge on it, but neither of us have survival.
No.
So that could be really difficult. I don't know if it'll be worth it.
I don't think it's worth it to use my blessing.
Okay, so we'll just fail the test and just let it go bye-bye.
When I believe I'm going to end my turn.
Okay.
I'm choosing not to explore again with my blessing.
Okay, I'm going to have Lem come over and join Valeros here at the farmhouse.
Would you like to flip your blessing card?
Of course. Another blessing of Iomide. I will reveal a short bow, which has dexterity ranged 3. Well, my dexterity is a D8, so there's a good chance I'm going to come up with this bow. I rolled a 7. Short bow comes to my hand. Now, normally you only get 1 explore per turn, but there's a lot of cards that say you can discard to explore. Like blessings can always be discarded to explore your location, and certain allies also can as well. So I think I'm going to discard my standard bearer. Discard this card to explore your location. So I get to search again. And I found a soldier. He's another ally. He takes a strength melee 8. Well, my strength is only a D4, so there's not a good chance of that one happening. But he also has charisma diplomacy 6. Well, my charisma is a D10, but I do have the diplomacy skill at a +3. So I get a D10 +3, and I need a 6. I got a 6. +3 is 9, so he comes to my hand. And I think I'll probably discard him right away to explore again. Caltrops, which is a nice little item that you can discard. Actually, it's banish to evade a monster that you've come across. It's a straight up D8 roll for me because it's dexterity. I got a 7, so I'm going to collect the Caltrops, which will be good if we run into any pesky enemies that we can't defeat. Okay, I'm on a roll here, so I got to keep going. I'm going to discard my... Actually, I'm going to hold on to the Sage and discard the Blessing of the Gods. The reason I'm holding on to the Sage is she has an ability that says recharge to add a D6 to any intelligence or wisdom check that I come across. Now, my intelligence is a D6 and so is my wisdom, so there's a good chance I could fail, so I'd rather hold her in my hand than just getting the extra dice from the Blessing of the Gods. It would work out about the same thing, but we'll see what happens. I come across a mercenary who's got a combat 10, and it says the difficulty to defeat him is increased by the adventure dex scenario number, which again is a 0, so we don't have to worry too much about that. Oh, but what I have been forgetting is anytime it's at this location, it says if you would discard an ally, you have to bury it instead. So when I discarded those allies to search again, I actually had to bury them. And what burying does is it tucks them underneath your character sheet. They're unavailable to you for the rest of this scenario, but you will get them back at the end when you rebuild your deck. If you win or run out of time. If you die, you actually lose all of your cards and have to start a new character. So hopefully we won't die, but you never know what could happen in this game. But anyways, I think I will use my light crossbow here, which is my dexterity of D8 with another D8. Because I'm at the same location with Valeros, he's going to boost me up by a D4.
Would you like a blessing?
No, I think I'll be okay, because I think I'm going to use my own. Because then I might be able to draw a spell. I need a 10. I'm rolling 2 8s and a 4. I am going to use my own blessing to give myself an extra D8. And let's see if I can roll myself a 10. 8, 8, 3, and 3. So 22, which is enough to beat the mercenary. So he goes bye-bye. Now, I'm running a little bit low here, so I think I'm just going to end my turn and let Joella have a go. I'll draw, and I drew the Cure spell.
Blessing of Torag.
Which is 2 dice to a non-combat strength check, which is really good.
I'm going to explore. And I have a Goblin
Commando, who says before the encounter he deals 1 ranged combat damage to you.
Since I have 2 longswords in my hand, I'm going to discard my longsword.
Okay. Now he's a strength 9, a combat 9.
So I have a D10. And my strength is a +3.
Are you going to use a weapon?
Yes. My weapon, used the wrong dice there. I'm going to use my, might use my mace. But it only gives me a D4 at the end. So I'll still use my longsword, which is a D8, another D8, and if I discard a card, I can add another D6.
Yeah. And what's Valoros's second power there?
Second power is when you play a weapon, you may recharge it instead of discarding it. So I'll get rid of my mace.
How much more dice does that give you?
It gives me another D6.
Okay.
1 more dice. And I will recharge it, because that's what his ability is. And I didn't put him on the bottom. And do I get any help from my Lem?
Sure. I'll recharge my short bow to give you a D4.
Thank you. And I get a +3.
Yeah.
So I have 9 and 2 is 11, +3 is 14.
Perfect. So you defeated the Goblin Commando. He goes bye-bye.
I would like to attempt to close my location.
That wasn't a henchman.
Oh.
He was just a regular enemy.
Oh, well then. Ooh, I think I'm going to end my turn.
Okay. Another mace.
And
chainmail. Okay, so I'll flip my blessing for my turn. Blessing of the Gods. I'll go exploring, and I find a ghoul. The ghoul is immune to the mental and poison traits, and if undefeated, reset your hand and end your turn. Well, I think I'm going to use... Maybe I should have cured before this, but I'm going to use my light crossbow, which gives me the 2d8. I don't have any blessings this time, so I won't get a 3rd dice. But I get a d4 from Valoros.
Would you like a blessing?
Sure.
I'll give you a blessing.
And I need an 11. Got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, which is enough to defeat him, so he's gone. Now, I could search again. We could see what we come across. So I think I'm going to actually do that. I'm going to play my Sage, which when I discard an ally, I have to bury it. And I will reveal a Potion of Energy Resistance, which is an intelligence craft check. Well, I don't have craft, but I do have intelligence. I get a d6. I need a 4. I got a 3. So I'm not going to get the potion. The potion's going to be gone. I am then going to cast the Cure spell, which is a d4. I rolled a 1 again, so I get 2 cards back from my discard pile at random. They get shuffled back into my deck. And I roll to see if I recharge Cure, which is a Divine 8 check, so a d10 plus 1. I rolled a 7, plus 1 is 8, so it goes on the bottom of my deck. I'm going to draw to refill, and I'll be done my turn.
Blessing of the Gods. And I will stay here and I will explore.
And we found the villain, Jubrail Visky. He says, before the encounter, recharge 2 cards of your choice from your hand.
Well, I guess it would be the chainmail and the mace.
Okay. And then you get to, because of the scenario rule, you get to draw 2 cards.
Just 2?
Yeah. Because you only recharged 2.
Stick up my weapons.
Alright, now he's a combat 10.
Okay, so I'll use my long sword. Oh, what's this? What I can do is my long spears. For your combat check, reveal this card to roll your strength or melee die plus 1d8. Well, my strength or melee die is a d10, so I'd have a better chance. And I have my d8.
Now, I think your longsword would be better here, because then you could discard it for an additional die, which would recharge it, and still leave you with a long spear in your hand.
Just in case anything happens?
Yeah, because you need a 10 to beat him. Whereas your long spear, if you discard it, it allows you to re-roll the dice if you've rolled a really bad roll.
Okay, so long sword is my d8. Another d8.
Your strength is a d10, I believe.
Right. My strength is a d10. I have my d8. And I can recharge the long spear.
Nope, you want to discard the longsword, which gives you another
d6.
Okay. You actually got to just pick up the pile. There you go.
Now I don't have any blessings in my hand.
I have a blessing, but I feel confident in your rolling because you're getting a +3 from your melee. But I will recharge a card to give you a d4.
Thank you. So 1, 3 is 4, 6 is 10, 13, and 3 is 16.
Okay, so that's enough to beat him. Now when you beat a villain, it automatically closes the location he's at. And then you count up the number of open locations still remaining, which is 2. You draw a random blessing from the blessing box, and you're going to shuffle him with that blessing at random. And you just got to try and keep your mind occupied on something else when you're shuffling 2 cards, so you don't know exactly which one's which. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to add 1 to each pile. And then each of those piles just gets a good shuffle, so we don't know exactly where he's run away to. So that's why you want to close locations, because it stops him from running away. And we've managed to close 2 locations.
And I will end my turn.
We're off to a really good start here.